Mehmet Inan, The Attacks of 9/11, The Technical Investigation, Part 5, The Masterminds. Such an attack, such a huge attack has been born in a brain and then proposed to a group that has decided to apply it. Then a design team has been set up for the project. The team should create the script of the scenario up to with the smallest details, organize the work, and set up the perpetration team. Then the perpetration team, explained in the previous video, did the job. But who is the design team of the project? And who is the deciding group that ordered the making of these attacks? The design team of the project is the Project for the New American Century, PNAC. The first time I heard about it, it looked like a group of financiers or weapon manufacturers that are used by the conspiracy theorists to increase their role. I decided not to waste time on it. Recently, in 2015, a friend asked me the question, what do you think about the PNAC? Then I looked some, and it appeared that it is an American neoconservative think tank, a true association with offices, secretaries, members, meetings, strategies, influence, lobbying, and so on. It was founded in 1997 by William Crystal and Robert Kagan. The activities are stopped in 2006. Their existence perfectly covers the attacks, some years before for preparation and some years after to follow and guide the situation and control the consequences. Their assumed objective is to strengthen the US Army. They published in September 2000 their main document representing the developments to be made for rebuilding America's defense. This document contains the following section: further, the process of transformation, even if it brings a revolutionary change, is likely to be a long one, absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event, like a new Pearl Harbor. And in November 2000, this group succeeded to elect George W. Bush to the presidency of USA. He is a simple-minded person that they can easily control. Then they immediately started the final preparation of the attacks. This group is the design and study team of the project. If we look, we will find some weapon manufacturers and finance businessmen who have an interest in creating wars. But could there be something else? At least the question needs to be asked. The PNAC, the founders of the PNAC are two leaders of the American Zionism, William Crystal and Robert Kagan. So they work for Israel. The actual name should be the Project for the New Israeli Century. USA existed for centuries. The new American century is meaningless. But for Israel, the situation is some different. The first Zionist generation of warriors was dying. The new generations were not warmongers. They were going to become weaker, and that may lead to the end of Israel. There was a need for a strategy for getting a new century for Israel. That name was so only a transposition of Israel over America. And this group of PNAC have all Bush team in their service. Donald Rumsfeld, Paul Wolfowitz, Richard Armitage, Dick Cheney, Lewis Libby, John Ellis, Jeb Bush, also Donald Kagan. Donald Kagan is the father of Robert Kagan. In their case, it's a family affair. But why Israel has created this team in 1997? What was happening in 1997 in Israel? On November 4th of 1995, Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated by a Jewish extremist during the peace negotiation with Palestinians. This triggers the start of the ending of the peace talks. Shimon Peres replaced him for several months. In the election of June 1996, the right-wing Likud is the winner. The party of the murderer wins the elections. Israeli society sanctified the murderer of Rabin. Benjamin Netanyahu is elected prime minister. He remained prime minister until 1999. After taking office, he started the war strategy machine. A year lasts for deciding what to do. In June 1997, he created the PNAC by two of his friends. So the deciding group that ordered to make the attacks is the first Netanyahu government. So Netanyahu himself. The strategy of PNAC. Weaken Bill Clinton to stop him putting more pressure on the Israeli in peace negotiation. Monica Lewinsky is declared in 1997. You say they started only in 1997, but the persons who were working for war and against peace were still existing. They were not in power, but they existed and they were working. So they prepared, they sent Monica Lewinsky to the White House to create such a scandal. And when they started the work, when they became on power, immediately they started by weakening Bill Clinton. Then they selected George W. Bush as president candidate. A weak person, as I said, they can make him to do what they want. The great lines of 9/11, the main actions of 9/11 attacks are almost ready in 1999. During the campaign, they published their famous paper Rebuilding America's Defense. And in November 2000, they succeeded to elect Bush to the presidency. And then the final preparations start. The inauguration of George W. Bush was in January 2001. Only 5 days after, the first American document that speaks about Al-Qaeda is written. At this time, the name was Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda, just some terrorist group. In March 2001, there are elections in Israel, and Netanyahu left his place to Sharon, who became prime minister. He is more maverick to exterminate the Palestinians after the 9/11. And above all, he is already old. If he is charged, the loss will be smaller. Netanyahu, the young generation, will take his place. And the war strategy is launched. The attacks are made in 9/11, and the image of terrorist is given to Muslims. The way is open for Israeli to shoot the Palestinians like animals. Sharon does it perfectly. Also, Yasser Arafat is killed. The war is launched against Afghanistan and then on Iraq. But this image of terrorism, it should be maintained. Otherwise, things calm down and we cannot more blame the Muslims. So they must regularly make new attacks, especially against the countries supporting the USA in the war, but not only. That's why the attacks in Madrid and London are made by Israeli against the two countries that participated in the invasion of Iraq. With these attacks, they will easily blame Muslims. It is sure these attacks were made because these two countries participated to the invasion of USA. It is easy to say, it is a good argument. But the real masterminds and the perpetrators are Israeli. I am not going to linger on this issue, this is another debate, but just two short evidence. In London, the bombs exploded under the carriage, not inside. Therefore, this attack is not made by the suspected terrorists as passengers in the underground. In Madrid, the decision of justice over the attacks was given on October 31, 2007, the eve of All Saints' Day. It was a false decision and the masterminds were not identified. Reread the decision by your own and you will understand. You see the ingenious tactic. When there is any insignificant justification for that Muslim to make an attack, then Israeli run quickly to commit it. In that manner, they have easy to blame Muslims. And that means every country who help Israel will be attacked by Israel in order to blame Muslims. Very strange strategy. But at some point you need to transfer the execution to Muslim. How? By the time the attacks become an example to follow for young Muslim generation who have known only these in their lives, because that lasts 15 years. Every people today who are more than 35 years old were smaller than 20. For all those people, they only knew this terror situation in their adult life. Added to that, the exclusion that make life more difficult for Muslims, we have the explosive cocktail. Added to this, the creation of the Islamic State, so-called, calling young Muslims to join them, supposed to combat these exclusions. And the job is done for using young Muslims all around the world to commit terrorist attack. Israeli can sleep and reduce their activities. These young Muslims started to make attacks in January 2015 with the attack of Charlie Hebdo in Paris. Then in November 2015 Bataclan, and then March 2016 Brussels. After that, all kind of attacks made by individuals happened, and the world became in a psychosis. My call to young Muslims: any attack made by Muslims serves Israel. Young Muslims around the world, do not fall in the trap. The respect for life and diversity is essential in Islam. See Quran, for example, 68:9. Many others also exist. The diversity of the humanity is presented as the will of God. So humans have no right to try to remove it. The whole world is deceived by these false blames on Muslims. To counter this, it needs two conditions. The truth and justice for all attacks must be made, and for this purpose the Muslim leaders must act. The compassion of Muslims toward their neighbors and also to those who are deceived and then attack Muslims, they must be compassionate against all those people. Here are some Muslims may not understand what I say, because the mainstream is the law of retaliation. But look at this verse. The Quran 42:40. The recompense of an injury is a bad identical action, but whoever forgives and makes peace, his reward is from Allah. Allah does not love the unjust persons. We will gain too much more by forgiving and making peace, because if we do so, any hostility stops. Not that I do not say do not defend yourself, but I say the best defense is not necessarily with weapons. A hadith gives the example: the ink of the scholar is more sacred than the blood of the martyr. Today, Muslims need justice that follows the truth, which itself needs the knowledge to be discovered. I thank all Muslims for their patience faced to those entire stressed war situation created by others and blamed on them. May God end this war and free all Muslims for these blames. So my call to the Jews of the world: these criminal Zionists kill innocents in the name of the Jewish nation, if we can speak of nation. In reality, they do not serve this nation. They commit monstrous crimes on behalf of this nation. They do not only kill Palestinians, Arab, but they kill people of all nations. Imagine when this nation will realize the Jewish nation will be very difficult to endorse all these crimes. You can avoid that by separating you from these criminals, and some of you are doing it. For example, Alan Zabrowski, who clearly says 9/11 is made by Israeli, but also Yeshurun, Jews against Zionism, and others. Your history is full of discrimination. You suffered, especially in Christian Europe. The cultural basis of such discrimination is particularly the accusation of having killed Jesus. Today, the Zionists are attacking Islam and the Quran. Do you know what the Quran says about the murder of Jesus? It says, "No, they have neither killed nor crucified him. He looked to them like Jesus, but he was not him." The Quran definitely removes this blame and thus protects the Jews, especially thanks to this kind of verses that the Jews have always found refuge in Muslim countries. In attempting to eliminate such discrimination against the Jews, some persons like Sabbatai Sevi or Jacob Frank took the path of manipulation, of deception, and spreading conflict among humanity. This path is a dead-end one. For your well-being and that of humanity, it is important that you leave this path. A Muslim from the Middle East who would make crimes like those that Israel makes today will have to go into exile from his own land, because there is no place for criminals in that area, nor in the world, and Israel cannot make exception to that. Contrary to the suggestion of the Torah, killing inhabitants by the sword and taking their place remains a crime against humanity. I take these unfortunate verses from the Torah that nothing else confirms from an altering of the Torah. I let you face to your conscience. But what can we do? The masterminds of the attacks have no more limit to commit every kind of attacks on their will. That happens today, and attacks are everywhere. It is mandatory to stop them, otherwise humanity is under huge danger. But our means are limited faced to the media, who are the actual defenders of those criminals. Even the politicians are silenced by the media pressure. The citizen should act pacifically and firmly to request justice. I propose a simple and easy action. Stick this poster on your windows, and we should keep it until truth is recognized and justice is made. You can download it from peace911.org. Thank you for all your service, courage, and participation.